Hello, Mitchell.
We are back.
We're back. We're back.
Back in New Jersey. No more Utica for the time being. Good and bad.
We'll be back. We'll be back in Utica in the near future. That's a separate story. Let's recap the World Lacrosse Box Championships. We're gonna start on the women's side. Team USA, Team One, affectionately known Team One, wins the first ever gold medal. You were on the call. You did a tremendous job of the call itself, and kind of capturing the moment. I think before we kind of dive into the game itself, just what did it mean? I think to the players, you could see some of the emotion on their faces afterwards, really on both sides. Like, what was it like? I try to capture that moment for us, just in terms of the first ever championship.
I think there were just so many unknowns. I think there was the unknown of what the tournament was going to be like, the unknown of what the toll box would take on these women's bodies over the course of 7 to 10 days. So I think it was a lot of like, what is this going to be like? And then when they went through, kind of rolled through each team. They got tested against the Haudenosaunee for the United States. Canada really had no tests
at all, right?
And so they figured out a lot of those unknowns over the course of the tournament, but then you got right back to the unknown of never playing against another tough team for both of these. And I shouldn't say another tough team. The Haudenosaunee were very tough, but never really having a challenge where you didn't know exactly what was coming at you. And I think neither team had really been tested defensively or goaltending wise. And that was to me the biggest question mark. Was like, whatever defense and goalie steps up, that's the team that's most likely going to win. And it was Ingrid Boyle who really stepped up. But also Kondo on Canada played amazing too. So.
I mean, the first half was a defensive battle, like low scoring, ton of saves. I thought the highlight of that was Ali Mastriani's. Like, there was the turnover, but then she has the caused turnover and she kind of buries one. Then Canada goes on a run. And you're like, what's going on here? And then the USA kind of respond with a run of their own, kind of capped off by Ali Kennedy, the own goal, and then Charlotte North kind of getting top, like turning the corner and burying that one from the outside.
I think Erin Bake scored the game winner, and then Charlotte North put the capstone on, and then they scored the empty netter to seal it.
Yeah. What was that response like? I mean, first the Canada run, and then the USA response. What did you see from the red, white, and blue in that response to Canada's run?
Well, I think early on there was just so much great goaltending, and they were really looking for like the perfect shot. I think everyone was trying, and the first few goals that went in were perfect shots. Like, they were placing them in the corners. But then as the game wore on, it's like you need to start shooting a little bit outside. And I think Canada recognized that. They scored a couple outside goals. And then the United States, Lily Rosenzweig, I did not see her being, the absolute star. She really is the one that turned the tide for that game. Yeah. She had 3 goals and played unbelievable. And she had a good tournament, but she wasn't like the go-to scorer. That was like Scanoni was kind of in that role. And Rosenzweig stepped in and took a couple big outside shots that went in, like really timely goals. And that broke it open. I think showed both teams really like, okay, we don't have to be perfect. We just have to get this thing done. And they started to do that down the stretch. And it went back and forth all the way till, like you said, 5 minutes left. It was tied.
Yeah.
And then that own goal, that was the tying goal. But that own goal was a tough one. I don't think that impacted things too much in terms of momentum.
Yeah.
But after that Erin Bake's goal and then the Charlotte North goal, was like, okay, the U.S. is in command of this final 5-minute stretch.
So you talked about goaltending. So explain to me how we don't have a women's box team, and this is an area we've struggled on the men's side, to comparatively speaking, right? And then Team One, we're the best goalie in the world.
All world team
is that coaching staff? Is that experience? How did that happen?
Coaching. I mean, it's coaching. It's coaching staff, and that's Jenny Capcioni. And I talked to Ryan Wheeler before the game, and he's like, that's our ace in the hole. We have arguably the best goalie coach in the entire world, coaching our goalie for 2.5, 3 years. And he's like, I think people don't understand how much work that Jenny has put in with those goalies and how big of an impact that's going to make. And clearly you saw it did. And Boyle she's big. She's 5'11". She's like 5'11". She's tall. She's 5'11". Takes up a lot of net, but super athletic, super active, and made some just incredible saves down the stretch. Some really important ones, like 1-on-1 with Team Canada women diving across the crease.
And I know Ginny, played with you, right?
On the 2011 team.
And then in terms of their training camp, I mean, like let's just dive into like what this coaching staff did, because they took a team, and this is kind of their words, not mine, like of field players. I mean, you watch that game, like they're running systems out of the box from a substitution standpoint. Yeah. Their 2-person games looked fantastic. Like cutting off ball, like it was so clean, it was so dialed in, like they looked the part, like the entire tournament. And then to kind of rise to the occasion, I think what a job the coaching staff did in terms of getting this team ready.
Yeah, and I think you almost look at it, I feel like the box level play and IQ was like neck and neck with Canada in that finals, but then it was just the athleticism and some of the field stuff, I think, that gave the United States the edge. And you look at how fast they were running, and Allie Kennedy in transition, some of those huge goals, like that was the edge they needed, that really separated them when it mattered the most. And then, but they had reached the Canadian level of box IQ, which is pretty amazing in that short period of time. To your point,
Allie Kennedy wins MVP. Who were some of the other players that really kind of stood out? Albeit a big name coming in that was like, oh no, she is just as good in box as she is in field, or some people that you're like, I didn't like see that level of performance, whether it be brand name or kind of otherwise. Who were some of the surprises, whether they were known or not known, in terms of beyond Allie, who won the MVP?
Yeah, I think Kayla Wood was really impressive to me. She did an amazing job, and she's probably a household name with the AU Pro, but I thought she was one on the defensive end, that she was tough, she was physical, and did a lot of little things that made a big difference during the game. Erin Bakes is by far, I think she was on that all-world team. She was their best offensive box player. She was deceptive. She knew how to run the 2-person game. She moved in ways that was, watching these other countries, you could kind of see sometimes there'd be a really good player and you're like, okay, but they do the same move over and over and it works against different teams. Erin Bakes was a full-fledged, multi-dimensional box player, and that to me was the most impressive thing. And she showed it time and time again, scoring big goals and really making plays, not just for herself, that opened up things on the other side. I think that's maybe why she was so dynamic. But those two really stood out to me on the U.S. side. On the Haudenosaunee side, Miquan Tulpin, if you watch her, laying the boom from a guy who doesn't mind dropping the body. There's if you made a best of her hits, she had some absolute decleater moments, and that was fun to watch. And she was certainly not afraid to get physical. The Canadian women, they were just strong top to bottom. I think Delana Williams, Sean Williams' daughter, she was amazing and did a lot of little things. But they had just a balanced offense, so it was really across the board. Their attack was pretty even.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game with my daughter, and it was hard. And she's so young, she doesn't really have to know what's going on. But the bigger picture, where I'm trying to drive at is, I think what was so cool and not lost to me watching it is just what is next, right? In terms of this is Team 1. They win the gold medal, but how many young girls out there, whether they were beginners or current college players, that are wait, this is now open for me. This is now a thing. This is now another avenue to play lacrosse, different format, and just so cool. I think if you look at the success that Team USA had, but bigger picture, what this means for lacrosse and box lacrosse specifically on the women's side.
Yeah, I think it's going to open up a ton of opportunity, and there needs to be more growth at the women's box side. And I think that's an exciting opportunity for groups like us at Trilogy to continue to teach the box game to a whole, basically, like you said, a whole nother group that hasn't had that opportunity yet, that is excited and eager and talented and coachable. And that's, I think, part of what made this Team 1 so special, is they were the best raw material. As Ryan Wheeler said, it's we did okay as coaches, but we had the best raw material to work with. So it's pretty easy to shape that into exactly what you want when they're eager and incredibly athletic and excited to be there.
All right, let's transition to the men's side of things. I'm not going to bury the lead here. Canada. Uh,
Canada being Canada.
Canada being Canada. They're still undefeated. They've still never lost in this championship in this format. So let's kind of sing their praises. Let's give them their flowers, so to speak. It was an impressive win.
Yeah, I think you look at talking to the coaching staff about the tough decisions they have to make and how they do it. They have to really make a lot of strategic, like who is going to fit best together. Yeah. And one of those decisions was Shane Jackson. Yeah. Not the flashiest of players, but anyone who's played with him or against him knows he does all the little things and he scores those big goals. And before the game, I asked Coach Glenn Clark, like Tanner Cook was sitting, and you're like, okay, what was the reasoning there? He's like, I just feel like Shane can play so well off so many different guys. And you saw it, he had a hat trick and scored 2 of the first 3 goals that were like, one was that from no angle, catches it and jams it in. It's like, yeah, that's what he does. That's so special. And when you have a guy like that, it's so valuable in those weird situations where it's like the shot clock's running down, you think you're just getting a reset, but it ends up being a goal, a really influential goal.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that left side, right? And the headliners are Teat and Byrne, right? As they should be. Yeah. So to your point about Jackson, like who can play with those two? Because like you're not going to have the ball all that much. You're not going to be initiating. You got to play off ball. You got to set hard picks. Like to me, that's why he was such an effective selection there. Yeah. Not to take anything away from Cook per se, but like that's why he was such an important selection in terms of how he meshed, with those guys. And like, when he had those 2 early, it was like, it felt like they were tone setters.
Yes. And then the United States clawed back and they made it a 4-3 game. And I think the part that was just, there was that stretch. So it was a 4-3 game going in a half. And then they came out and Canada scored 2 relatively quick goals. That Berg shovel shot goal. And that was a moment where it's like, okay, if the U.S. got a goal there and could stop the bleeding, I think they would have been okay. Yeah. But they compounded it with a couple penalties, and then it just was a little bit too much. And then that Canada, it was one thing talking to Reggie Thorpe. He said we got to stay out of the box. And they ended up getting 7 penalties. Like, we could maybe do 3 penalties, but he's like, we can't be at 5-7. And they ended up at 7. Canada scored on 3 of those power plays. They also scored an extra man when they pulled the goalie, and they also scored shorthanded. Yeah. So that, like, power play and extra man just being so deadly, like you talked about. There's so many shooters, so many one guys, and you just can't let them have those opportunities.
Going into the game, you thought if Canada had any sort of, it was around the goalie. Not necessarily the goalie, but the fact that they had 3 of them and they got to make a pick. How did they navigate that potential awkward or tense kind of decision and situation? How did they manage that so effectively? And then what did you see from their goalie play in the championship?
Yeah, so I don't know if they actually told the goalies, hey, each of you is going to play 2 games, or if that's just what happened naturally, but basically every game they started a different goalie. So they had 3 goalies. Every goalie got 2 games. They got 2 games to rest, and they would play again. And Christian Del Bianco played against the United States. So that was the other piece to this. They probably timed it up so that way Christian Del Bianco would see the U.S. in the pool play game on Tuesday night and then see him again in the finals.
That can go either way, that decision. But
right, and Del Bianco played unbelievably. He there were some saves. I was like, oh, that's a goal. And then he would just... There was 2 cross-crease sliding saves, but a couple that were just like absolute rips where guys would pull it back short side and he just shrug the shoulder and get to that corner. And he is really good. And he's also so good at those outlets. I mean, the outlet piece of it is, I think, maybe underappreciated. It's like, wow, that's cool, but that puts so much pressure on the defense to get back. And so many of those end up in either transition opportunities or just offensive guys getting caught back on defense, which we saw a few times. I think Joey Spallina got caught back on defense on one of the goals that Canada scored. So just like being able to capitalize on tired offensive players, get them stuck, and then get your offense either extra man opportunities or opportunities against a tired offensive player.
I didn't bury one lead, and that was Canada winning, but I did bury the other lead, and that was Jeff Teat winning the MVP. So now he just comes off of a summer where he wins the PLL MVP, and now he's the World Lacrosse Box Championship MVP. I can obviously speak from a field standpoint, but like, as can you, but like, what is it about his game where he's able to adapt and kind of morph between the two formats so seemingly effortlessly, and it's such a high effective level. It's one thing to be very good at both. It's another thing to be like, no, you're the MVP. MVP in both.
It's almost hard to describe because I think that's part of why he makes it look so effortless.
Yeah.
And it's like every situation he's calm, he's collected, and he's just thinking on a faster level than everyone. His first goal, he catches it and shoots it so fast. All of his shots he catches and shoots so fast and so accurately and so hard all at the same time. You're like, well, I was in a great position, but what can you do there?
Yeah.
I think that makes it so different. And he does it in a quiet way. He was 1 goal and 11 assists heading into the first game against the United States. And I was like, what? It's like, there's no way he's going to end at 1. And he ended up with, I think, 14 goals on the tournament. So he like ramped it up in the playoffs quite a bit. But his ability to just do the right thing on the floor at the right pace all the time, and that's is unmatched in field and box, and that's why he's so good.
Team USA.
Although I will say, if you're going to argue that Jeff Teat had the best year ever, Dane Smith had a pretty damn good year too, and Adam Levy had a funny one because I was like, he won a Man Cup, he won the NLL championship, he won the Man Cup, he won the World Championship, and he got married the first night.
That's right.
But Adam Levy, bonus, he got a chicken sandwich named after him at Mr. Sizzles in Buffalo. That's the cherry on top. That might have been the separator that got him, one step above Teat. If they add the Jeff Teat sandwich, he might be on the same level.
So challenge to all of the delis in Jeff Teat's
Ottawa. We got to get a nice Ottawa, maybe some kind of poutine, the Jeff Teat poutine.
I think so. Yeah, that'll even the playing fields. Team USA, they come up short. They obviously wanted to win gold, but like, all things considered, this is their best finish ever. We talked about the difference of this Team USA, versus previous ones. Let's have a little bit of a forward look. They got to the gold medal game, came up short. What is the gap? What is that gap, and how can they take the next step to overcome the Canadian hurdle, if you will?
Yeah, I think the main gap right now is just IQ in clutch moments. And they were, if they play, I said it to a couple people, if they played their absolute best game ever, they could have beat Canada, no questions asked. I think the other thing, there still is that sense of the American athleticism. You saw CJ Kurz kind of shake and then rip it low to high right under Del Bianco's glove, and you're like, that's going to work in any league you play in.
Yeah.
Now, Josh Byrne can do that too, and he does do that. So, like, Canada has those type of athletes and players.
We need more scorers.
But we need more scorers, and I think it's just like, I mentioned that 6-goal run of Canada. It's like they needed to be able to find a way to stop that 6-goal run and make it a 3-goal run or a 2-goal run. Whether that was, I mean, obviously there's no fighting or, they had to find a way to grit out a goal or something to change the pace in that direction.
It feels like the Shane Jackson low angle, right? The Westberg backhand. Like, it seems like we don't get those. It seems like Team USA, like, those all go towards Canada. We don't get those, not I don't call them cheap goals because they're not cheap goals, but like the high IQ, the situational
not
IQ.
As consistently. Because I saw there was one point, I don't remember if it's the first Canada-US game or the second. There's one point where we had tic-tac-toe passing, and then they caught, I think it was Bertrand on his wrong side, cutting across, and he finished with a beautiful finish, like a fake and a dip and a dunk. And I'm like, that was a Canadian style, like great off-ball movement, tic-tac-toe passing. Do you hit a guy on the wrong? That's kind of like one of those, like, wow, that's exceptional lacrosse in the box forum. And I think Canada makes those plays more routinely or more down the most crucial stretches. U.S. just needs to make those a couple more times. And then goaltending is a big one. But Goa Abrams was spectacular. He was, fantastic. He made a game-saving save against the best player in the world, Lyle Thompson, 1-on-0.
Yeah.
And I think he was good against Canada, but he wasn't as superhuman as they needed him to be to beat all those like super, super high level plays that they made.
For me, it's that and then transition. It feels like we just didn't get really, I know Connor Kirst made the all world team, but we just didn't get it. It seemed like we didn't get enough transition to the championship as well, which between him, Tarafinko, Danny Logan, I can name a couple other guys, but like I thought Canada did a good job of either getting back or clean in their substitution game to kind of take, because they knew that we needed that.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think that was more a factor of game plan by Canada and executed game plan by Canada. And they were able to just eliminate really all of that. There was one or two chances, and I think Kurse had a really good look that Del Bianco made an amazing save. Yeah. So like there was chances, but Canada limited them to so few and far between, and then we didn't capitalize, and that ultimately was one of the difference makers.
Well, I know from just, and obviously I'm pretty biased here, but from a fan perspective, I thought you did just a tremendous job in terms of balancing, the first people to ever watch a box game, and then kind of, seasoned veterans that, knew the intricacies and were looking for kind of like something to them. So I thought you did a tremendous job kind of balancing the two and kind of rising to the moments of each championship and each game that you called. What are, now that everything's kind of wrapped up, what are some of your kind of major takeaways as we kind of close the books on the box championships?
Well, the broadcast, you bring that up. That was Teddy Jenner. I've interacted with quite a bit on, virtual panels but never in person. So I got to hang out with Teddy Jenner. That was great. And I just thought that whole staff was excellent. Mackie Jenner on the field did a great job. Daniela Bonicelli was amazing to work with. She was really, really cool and hadn't done a ton of box lacrosse, but you never would have known it. And throughout the course of the week, she's so well researched and does such a good job that she was just amazing. And I thought those 2 gold medal games, like a perfect call on both of those. Yeah. So that was a really special, unique experience to get to work with that whole team. But I think overall, it's just excitement for the growth of box. The one thing is like U.S. and Canada and Haudenosaunee keep getting better and better. We need the other countries to catch up. Yeah. We need more of that. But as more players play, there's going to be more players with different countries' heritage. So you will get better players. You saw Josh Dowek played for Slovakia. I think he had like 65 goals in the tournament. Like, you get guys.
There's some Nate Solomon highlights out there.
Nate Solomon putting it one leg one handed between the legs for Israel. So there will be all high tides rise all ships or whatever. But it needs to be more of that internationally and globally. And then the women's side, just so much excitement for Team 2 and Round 2 across, as we see 4 years of development before the next World Lacrosse Box Championships.